When Elon Musk walked onto the stage that afternoon in Austin, the audience expected to hear about Mars missions, neural networks, or the next big leap in electric cars. But instead, he began with something so ordinary, it caught everyone off guard: the idea that the greatest dangers most people face aren't out in the streets or deep in space, but right inside their own homes. He paused for a moment, looking across the crowd, and said quietly, "We've built our own cages, and sometimes, we decorate them with comfort." The words settled heavily in the room, and for the next few minutes, everyone listened differently. He spoke first about dependence, the silent, invisible kind that hides behind convenience. He described how smart devices, designed to help, slowly begin to take over small choices. "Your phone knows you better than your best friend," he said, his tone gentle but firm. And that's not a compliment. He told a story about visiting a friend's modern home, where everything ran on automation: lights, blinds, temperature, even the coffee machine. When the Wi-Fi went out, they couldn't even make a cup of coffee, he said with a half smile. They looked helpless, not because they didn't know how, but because they forgot they could. He wasn't mocking them, his voice carried empathy, almost sadness. "When we give too much control to technology," he said, "we forget our own abilities. That's not evolution, that's surrender." He explained how dependence on technology begins with small habits: using voice assistants for reminders, smart fridges to track groceries, security systems that decide when we feel safe. "The more we outsource awareness, the less aware we become," he said. "Technology should serve you, not control you." He reminded the audience that machines don't care about emotions, love, or connection, they only respond to commands. "If you let an algorithm decide what makes you happy," he said softly, "you'll never truly know what happiness feels like." Then Musk shifted to the second danger, something quieter, yet deeply destructive: energy waste. "Every home is a small ecosystem," he explained. "But most of us treat it like an endless resource." He described how homes leak energy constantly, from chargers left plugged in, televisions running on standby, to air conditioners working when no one's in the room. "It's like invisible smoke," he said, "you can't see it, but it's polluting the planet from within your walls." He reminded the crowd that change doesn't have to start with massive inventions or billion-dollar projects. "It starts when you unplug what you don't need," he said. "When you care enough to notice." He spoke about a habit he practices himself: walking through his home every night before bed, turning off unnecessary lights and devices. "Not because I can't afford the energy," he said, smiling slightly, "but because I can't afford the ignorance." The room filled with laughter, but it was the kind that carried understanding. "If we can launch rockets to space," he continued, "surely we can remember to turn off a switch." His point was simple but profound: caring for the Earth begins inside the walls we live in, not in faraway policies or abstract debates. The third danger Musk talked about wasn't about wires, electricity, or machines, it was about hearts. He called it emotional disconnection. "Families sit together but live apart," he said, glancing at the crowd. "Their eyes are glued to screens, their laughter replaced by scrolling, their silence filled with noise." He recalled how once, during dinner, one of his children challenged him to leave his phone outside the dining room. "It was a simple thing," he said, "but it changed everything." He described how the dinner turned into a long, real conversation, one filled with laughter, storytelling, and presence. "I realized that love doesn't need Wi-Fi," he said, smiling warmly. He urged the audience to reclaim their homes as spaces of connection rather than distraction. "The greatest invention of all isn't the internet," he said. "It's human empathy." He explained how families lose touch not because they stop loving each other, but because they stop being fully present. "When your attention is divided," he said, "your love becomes fragmented." He told everyone to try something simple: put away phones during family time, light a candle, share a story, play a song, or simply listen to each other breathe. "It's in those moments," he said, "that homes stop being houses and start becoming hearts again." As he spoke, something shifted in the room. People weren't thinking about gadgets or bills anymore, they were thinking about their children, their parents, their partners. Musk's tone wasn't one of warning, but of compassion. He wasn't trying to scare people, he was trying to awaken them. You can't change the world if your home is hurting you, he said softly. Kindness starts at home, not just to the people you live with, but to the space that holds your life. He explained that the home is like a mirror, reflecting back what we put into it. If we fill it with noise, we get confusion. If we fill it with care, we find peace. Every sound, every color, every object in your home affects how you feel, he said. Make sure they tell a story you want to live. He urged people to pay attention to the small things, to how light enters a room, how the air feels, how often people smile inside their walls. Awareness, he said, is the real smart home. As Musk began to wrap up the first part of his talk, he left the audience with one thought that lingered long after. True intelligence, he said slowly, isn't artificial. It's emotional. It's the ability to notice when something feels wrong, when you're too attached to things that don't love you back, when silence feels heavier than peace. He looked at the audience for a moment, his voice quiet but full of meaning. If your home feels noisy even when it's quiet, he said, maybe it's time to listen differently. The crowd didn't clap right away. They just sat there, reflecting. For once, they weren't thinking about the future of technology, but about the future of their own lives. As the room grew quieter, Elon Musk took a small sip of water and continued speaking, his tone softer now, almost reflective. He said the last two dangers were the hardest to see, not because they were invisible, but because people had grown too used to them. The real threats, he said slowly, are the ones we stop noticing. The fourth danger, he explained, was the hidden toxicity that lives within the walls, furniture, and air of our homes. He talked about how modern living, in its pursuit of comfort and beauty, often hides layers of chemical pollution that silently affect health. We design homes to look perfect on the outside, he said, but we rarely think about what they're made of. He spoke about paints that release fumes long after drying, air fresheners that mask air instead of cleaning it, and plastics that release microtoxins over time. We don't see it, so we don't think it matters, he said. But our lungs, our skin, our children, they notice. He shared that, years ago, when Tesla was experimenting with new materials for car interiors, he discovered how certain adhesives and plastics could cause fatigue and headaches after long exposure. If it can happen inside a car, imagine what happens inside a house, he said. He paused, letting that idea settle. The air you breathe is part of your diet. And yet, most of us don't even check what's in it. Musk described how he began replacing toxic materials in his own life, simple steps, like using natural cleaning agents, choosing safer paints, and adding indoor plants that naturally filter the air. You don't need to be rich to live clean, he said. You just need to care. He explained that the home is like a living organism, everything inside it interacts, creating harmony or harm. When you walk into a home filled with peace, he said, you can feel it before anyone speaks. He encouraged everyone to pay attention to how their spaces made them feel, lightheaded, tired, or restless. Sometimes, he said, your home is telling you it's not healthy. You just have to listen. But it was the fifth danger that Musk said was the most powerful, the danger of neglect. Not neglect in the usual sense of forgetting chores or repairs, but something deeper, emotional neglect toward the very place that shelters us. A home isn't just walls and a roof, he said quietly. It's a living memory of how you treat it. He spoke about how people rush through their homes every day, rushing to work, rushing to sleep, without pausing to appreciate them. We clean the floors but forget to clean the energy, he said, his voice calm but firm. We decorate with objects but not with warmth. He told a personal story that seemed to come from a place of tenderness. After months of travel and meetings, he once visited his mother, May, at her small apartment. It was simple, he said. Nothing luxurious, no futuristic gadgets, just a few plants, soft light, and handwritten notes stuck on the fridge. He smiled, remembering. There was something alive in that space. Not because of technology, but because of love. He explained how the energy of kindness can transform even the smallest space into something extraordinary. A home filled with gratitude feels bigger than a mansion filled with indifference, he said. Musk paused for a moment and looked around the audience. Your home remembers everything, he said. Every argument, every kindness, every silence. It carries it all. He explained how homes can become emotionally heavy when people stop nurturing them, when laughter fades, when love is replaced by routine. A house without love, he said, slowly forgets how to feel like home. He urged everyone to treat their homes with presence, to notice what they bring inside, not just physical objects, but emotions, attitudes, and energy. Clean your space like you clean your soul, he said softly. Forgive the mess, open the windows, let the light in. He also shared how people underestimate the healing power of small acts, watering a plant, lighting a candle, or playing soft music. When you do these things with intention, he said, you're not just decorating your home, you're healing it. He spoke of energy in a way that felt spiritual but grounded. Science explains how things work, he said, but kindness explains why they matter. He wanted people to realize that technology, for all its brilliance, could never replace the warmth of a human touch, the peace of a quiet evening, or the comfort of a shared meal. You can fill your home with the smartest devices, he said, but it will never feel alive until you fill it with kindness. When Musk finished his talk, the room was still. There were no flashes of cameras, no excited chatter. Just silence, a thoughtful kind of silence. People weren't thinking about artificial intelligence or space travel anymore. They were thinking about their kitchens, their bedrooms, their families. They were thinking about the feeling of walking through their own front doors. One woman in the front row wiped her eyes. He didn't talk about saving the planet today, she said quietly. He talked about saving our homes. As Musk stepped off the stage, someone from the back called out, "What should we do first?" He turned around, smiled, and said, "Start small." He paused, then added, "Turn off one light you don't need. Say one kind word you've been holding back. Hug someone. That's how you change your home. That's how you change the world." The crowd applauded, not with excitement, but with sincerity. The kind of applause that comes from understanding something important. Long after he left, his words lingered in the air. People began to talk quietly among themselves, not about technology, but about intention. Musk's message had reached them in a way few speeches ever did. Not through logic or data, but through a reminder of something timeless. That kindness is not just a gesture. It's an atmosphere, a form of energy that fills every space it touches. And when you fill your home with it, you don't just make it safer, you make it sacred.